Hello, everyone on Instagram. I'm live now on my YouTube channel to talk about the source material that has inspired episode 9. It's not a spoiler live broadcast. Feel free to join in. Come straight ahead to my YouTube channel. I'm going to be online for the next 5 minutes here on Instagram, and afterwards, I'll be on my YouTube. So I hope to see you guys there. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this very special live broadcast, which follows the ninth episode of X-Men 97. And I wanted to talk about the comic books, the stories that inspired this particular episode. A lot of people are quite amazed and shocked at what has happened, but for someone who has been reading X-Men since he was 7 years old, 8 years old, it did not come as a surprise to me, and quite a bit of it. What I wanted to do was just to take the opportunity for those young readers, for those who are new to comics, just to showcase them, just to tell them, just to talk to them about the stories that they need to read as well. Because believe me, what you saw in that particular episode, no doubt, it's a very good episode, and I'm going to be keeping it spoiler free. It's a very good episode, and hats off to Joe DeMaio once again for basically, you know, being the best producer and being the best writer for this. You need to read the source material because by the end of the day, you are missing out on the depth of it. And what's going to happen is that when you get the opportunity basically to to read these issues, to read these comics, to read these stories, you will be in a different zone altogether because the experience of comic books, it's something which cannot be equated with what we see in the animated series. Even though animations, when it comes to adaptations as a series or as a feature presentation, they tend to be much better than the movies. Still, what happens is that a lot of the interesting stuff gets missed out. So, to basically take you guys through, what I have done is I have taken out all of the comics that I have that are related to the episode 9 and the precursor events, if you will. All of them are here with me. Here's a stack. Of course, I've got more. And just to give you guys a preview, a small preview of in the YouTube live broadcast, you are going to be getting to see all of them up close and personal, if you will. Anyways, as I was saying, that adaptations in animated series, animated features tend to be much better compared to the movies. And what happens is that a lot of the interesting bit just simply gets missed out. So, starting with X-Men number 275, this entire story is one heck of a story. And whatever you saw that about Professor Xavier vis-a-vis his relationship with Lilandra, the Shi'ar Empire, everything, it's all here. And written by Chris Claremont, art by Jim Lee. This is the time when Jim Lee was rising to prominence in the comic book industry. This is way back in 1991, if I am not mistaken. Yes, it is 1991. It's a beautiful gatefold cover, and this story on its own, it's simply the best, if you will. Now, the interesting bit is that I have to do a balancing act for those who have not watched this episode. So I don't want, or who haven't watched this series, I don't want to spoil it for them basically. but at the same time I want to keep this interesting for them so that they have the motivation to basically go through these issues. Because if you read these stories before watching the X-Men animated series, X-Men animated series, you will not be at a loss. In fact, you are going to be in a much better position to basically experience this entire episode in the history of Marvel Studios. So please bear with me. For those who are joining me on Instagram, I am going to be online for a few more minutes, and afterwards, what I will be doing is that I'm going to be switching back to YouTube because that's where the action is happening, and I would love all of you guys to join me. For those on YouTube, please bear with me for a few more minutes, and I'm going to be showing you the other bits that are going to raise your level of excitement. Comics for me are pretty important, and I don't want you guys to lose out on that experience. Plain and simple. Okay, so now the community on YouTube, I see uh, very few viewers. I got a bit late. I wish I had done that a bit earlier. Better late than never, as they say. Okay, now these stacks of comics, they comprise of Cable comic books, X-Men, Wolverine. These are all from the crossover Operation Zero Tolerance. So the villain that you have seen, Bastion, was introduced in this crossover event. One of the best ones, if I might say, from the later 90s period. This is before Ages of Apocalypse, which should not be confused with Age of Apocalypse. Age of Apocalypse was the predecessor. It came in 1994, and then came Ages of Apocalypse. So before Ages of Apocalypse, we had Operation Zero Tolerance. Let me show you the logo of this series. Yeah, this is the logo, Operation Zero Tolerance. Bastion was introduced here for the very first time, and now I just want to move on to the main event. The main event is that episode 9, everyone or a lot of people are in shock. Not me, not people like myself who have been reading the source material for quite some time, but it gives me tremendous amount of pleasure to actually be introducing you to the source material. So those on Instagram, I am now signing out, and you can join me on YouTube. Welcome to my viewer. Thank you. I was talking about X Men comics that inspired episode 9 of X Men the Animated Series. So, I have a full stack of comics right here waiting that are relevant to the series overall as well as the specific episode that I'm talking. I promise you this is going to be a spoiler free live broadcast because I don't want you guys to basically, I don't want to ruin your excitement. So here it goes. Now, before you joined in, I was showcasing some of the comic books that have made their impact on the series, like X Men number 275 and the subsequent issues that came about. Followed by the introduction of Bastion in the series. Now, Bastion, while they have intertwined the events all together, Bastion made his appearance in this crossover, which is called Operation Zero Tolerance. Now, luckily, I have much of the issues: Wolverine, X Men, Uncanny X Men, all of them. That let me show you the X Men. Yeah, so even Spider Man had made an appearance in this crossover event briefly. Now, what we saw in episode 9, the events that they have joined come from this comic book. Not just one comic book, but issue. This is X Men issue number 1, issue number 2, issue number 3. Do I have them all? Yes, I do. The entire story is in this three-part episode. All three comics are here with me. So you can see X Men number 1, my prized possession, the first print, gatefold cover. You can open it further. So this is X Men number 1. Now, episode 9 takes a lot from this series, sorry, these issues. Thank you for joining Comic Books Bahrain. Really, really happy that you joined this live broadcast and you shared your message. Amazing, man. X Men number 1 is just amazing. Okay, so this is issue number 2. The story continues in issue number 2, and then it ends here, it concludes here in issue number 3. After, sadly, after these three issues, issue number 3 of X Men, Chris Claremont, due to his dispute with the editorial of Marvel at the time, because at that time Bob Harris was the editor in chief, he had left the X Men franchise, and then he was later succeeded by Scott Lobdell, Fabien Nicieza, a whole group that did a lot of good work. Of course, we cannot equate their work with what Chris had done, but they still gave us a good amount of crossover events, a good amount of stories that we still remember. This team is the one that gave us X Men Onslaught. It gave us Age of Apocalypse. It also gave us Ages of Apocalypse and obviously Operation Zero Tolerance. So it just goes to show that how much Pio De Mayo, the writer and the executive producer for X Men animated series, has taken from these. He also took a great deal from the 80s comics like The Trial of Magneto. So, but for me, these ones are quite close to my heart because this is a very special time for me. I was a teenager back then. It's the early 90s. And I mean, like, life was just simple and beautiful. Getting comics was a big challenge, but somehow, thanks to my mom and dad, I was able to collect a great deal of comics. Some of them I had to collect later in the years. Anyways, without drifting further away into the past, the other bit that comes about from this comic is from Fatal Attractions X-Men number 304. This comes with the holographic card, and this is where Magneto basically, after after suffering a severe defeat in X-Men number 1, makes a very surprising return and breaks the X-Men and Professor Xavier apart, because he wanted to make the case that the dream of Xavier is dead. And it every panel of this story is worth reading. Yes, it is part of the crossover event Fatal Attractions, which on its own is one of my favorites. But to read this comic, to see two friends becoming enemies, because yes, there was rivalry between Professor Xavier and Magneto, but the way they took it up a notch in this one was something that still resonates with me. I mean, and the art is done by John Romita Jr. You can see this entire cover and a beautiful Magneto hologram. Next up, the story continues in X-Men number 25. X-Men number 25, which is written by Fabien Nicieza, and the art is done by Adam Kubert's younger brother, Andy Kubert, who was a big sensation, big X-Men sensation, and Marvel's Midnight Sun sensation in the 90s. So you have it here. Thank you, Comic Books Bahrain. Glad you are enjoying the broadcast and you like the cover. This is Gambit. My name's Gambit, mon ami. Remember that. This is how the cover looks like. Now, I don't want anyone to basically spoil it for others who haven't watched episode 9, but a lot of what you saw in that episode, the groundbreaking moment, the surprise, the shock, comes from here. Now, some additional information. We don't know how this is going to play out in the series, but in the comics, the story continued in Wolverine number 75, and this is beautiful. It's a piece of art on its own. Larry Hama wrote a wonderful story, but Adam Kubert's art, it completed it. Just look at the cover. And that's not all. You see this hologram? This is also done by Adam Kubert. I'll try to show it to you as closely as I can. The Fatal Attractions, for those who are not aware, was part of X-Men's 30th anniversary, and Avengers and X-Men, they both uh, came into existence in the same year, which is 1963. But the way they had celebrated X-Men's 30th anniversary, they put Avengers team to shame, quite literally. So now you guys have an idea for these issues, and if you want the exact numbers of these issues, if you weren't able to check out which issue number I was showing you, you can share a message, you can share a comment, and I'll be really glad to share all of the information with you. But the point of this live broadcast is that today the world is waking up to the shocking moments that everyone saw in the episode. But if you want to really take up your enjoyment to the next level, you need to read these comic books. Yeah. Comic Books Bahrain, you are spot on. And it is Wolverine number 75 is the issue that establishes that Wolverine's claws were actually a mutation, not because of the Weapon X program's uh, bonding of adamantium into his bones that caused that reaction. No, it was not a reaction, it was his mutation, which was further established in Marvel Knights Origins series, written by Paul Jenkins and art by Andy Kubert once again, which explored Wolverine's origins before Weapon X program. And it established that Wolverine had claws all along. So please make sure that you do read these issues. These issues are, I mean, the level of storytelling, whether you're talking about text based story, whether you're talking about the visual story, it's it may not be at the level of what Chris Claremont and John Byrne and Dave Cockrum and Terry Austin had done, but it's certainly very close to it. In fact, what we came across in the Krakoa age, which started out really strong thanks to Jonathan Hickman, but as soon as he left the X Men franchise, things just went downhill. So this is a true successor to what Chris Claremont and his teammates in the form of artists like John Byrne and Dave Cockrum and Terry Austin and all these guys had done. Bob Wycheck also, John Romita Jr. also had accomplished, but it's a very good successor to it. So these are the stories that are the reason why you had such a good episode. Of course, for me, the experience is a bit mellow because I always like having read the comic book myself. I always prefer the comic book medium over animation over movies. That's my personal bias. However, I don't. I'm not here to bash what they are doing at the animation. What I am here to say is that I want to take your excitement to another level. And for that, you need to read these comics. Thank you to each and every one of you who joined in. Comic Books Bahrain, God bless you, man. Allah Sallamak, for actually coming into the chat and sharing your valuable observations. I will be coming back with more live broadcasts in the future. Please make sure to share this because this is going to be uploaded on my channel also. And let me know in the comments, is was there something that I missed, or do you want some more information? Just let me know, guys. And if you like this broadcast, please make sure to like it and share it with all of your friends who are X-Men fans and comic book readers like myself. Thank you once again, Comic Books Banyan. Allah Mak.